I want to be forever young. Do you really want to live forever?
One life,
forever,
one love,
and ever.
one soul.
Today's October 6th, 2019. I'm Brent Nally. We're here in the Las Vegas area at the Westgate Hotel and Casino. We just finished up 4 pretty intense days of RAADFest, which is the 4th annual RAADFest. RAADFest stands for the Revolution Against Aging and Death. It's been pretty incredible, and I'm really excited to be here with you and finally meet you in person because I've seen so much of your content on the interweb. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. This is great.
Yeah, Dr. Sandy Kaufmann, but she prefers to be called Dr. Sandy. So call her Dr. Sandy, all right? Get it? So, what's RAADFest been like for you so far?
RAADFest is just an amazing experience. This is my 2nd year of being here. I came last year. I didn't know a whole lot. I was a total newbie. I had just put out a book. I put up a little shack, started selling some books, and started introducing myself. And within a year, I am sort of now part of the establishment, which is pretty amazing. So I was on some 3 panels, and I gave a lecture this morning. I have sold out of books. I've sold out of products. I am just sort of sold out of everything. It's just been absolutely a tremendous opportunity to meet some really cool people.
That is super awesome. I didn't know you came last year. I've personally been in this kind of community for about 10 or 15 years. I'm 34, but I've always had excuses. So I remember when they were talking about forming the first RAADFest. I remember when it occurred. I was working at LinkedIn in a pretty demanding enterprise sales job, so it's hard to tell your manager, hey, can I take a week off to go to Vegas and meet with some people who think they're going to live indefinitely? So there's my excuse there. And then last year I was fortunate enough to quit my job at the beginning of the year. My wife and I traveled the world. We went to about 25 countries, and I promised her that we would do Europe, the expensive part. Southeast Asia was the cheap part we did in spring. And I couldn't break that promise to her, but it really crushed me that, again, I was missing RAADFest. This isn't a sob story. I'm very blessed.
I know I'm going to cry.
I'm traveling
this is
Europe,
crazy,
so
yeah.
I can't go to a longevity conference.
You poor man.
Right?
This is terrific, yes.
But I guess my point is like, get to RAADFest. This has been so incredible to connect with all these people, meet. You're so incredible. And so I want to talk about how you have risen to kind of the top here very quickly because you have,
yeah.
And you have for very good reason. And personally, I heard about you about a year ago, but it wasn't until I interviewed Dr. Bill Andrews in his office on May 30th, which you can find on this YouTube channel, and you should watch. And I asked him what I ask most people: hey, what books do you suggest I read? What's new in longevity, right? Because things are changing so quickly. And he mentioned you, and he has 2 books.
Yes.
And I've read 2 of his books, and they're good. But he mentioned your book, so we're going to get into why.
So I have to tell you my ambush story.
Okay, I love it.
My ambush story. So I was here last year, as I said, and I didn't know anyone, not a soul. I had this book that I had developed in absolute...
Hi, I'm Sandy.
Yeah, pretty much. It looks pretty pathetic and wimpy. I developed it in absolute obscurity as sort of a challenge to myself. And I showed up at RAADFest, put up a sign, I am selling books. But what I really did is I got the brochure and I highlighted all the important people and I hunted them down. Sounds a little spooky or bizarro, I guess.
That's exactly what I'm doing this year.
Good point.
That's why I'm standing right here next to you.
Excellent point, so it's not so freaky. So I tracked down Bill Andrews and I said, here's my book. The irony is that 7 people had handed me their book and I was an absolute nobody, so I thought there's no way Bill's going to read my book. He told me yesterday that he'd actually lost my book and then felt horrifically guilty about it because I'd sort of like made fun of him. I'm like, you're going to read this? He's like, yeah, of course I'm going to read it. I'm like, no, you're not. You're going to read 17 other books. He's like, I promise I'm going to read it. Turns out he lost the book. He ordered another copy because he felt so guilty, read through it very quickly, and then I got the best email of my life. It was a month after RAADFest, and it basically said, this is Bill Andrews. You probably don't remember me, but I was the keynote speaker. And I thought, oh my God, the humility is just amazing. And he goes, this is the best book I've ever read. Would you care to collaborate on some anti-aging projects? And it has just skyrocketed from there.
So that is an incredible story, and there's two major things that come to mind with me from that story. Number one, it shows the character of Bill.
Oh yeah.
He's a man who does what he says he's going to do. And number two, I have to tell a quick story to explain this. I said that I quit my job. I said I was working at LinkedIn, but I didn't say I was in the e-learning department. So I was at a company called lynda.com. We got acquired by LinkedIn. LinkedIn got acquired by Microsoft. So I know a little bit about learning, and particularly e-learning in this day and age. And so the reason why you've been able to get to where you are is because you are a voracious learner, and you are incredible at figuring out what is real and what is not real. And that is a skill set that most people do not have, and Bill has that skill set. And so that's why he was able to, first of all, have the ethics to do what he said he was going to do and read your book, and that's why he was able to see it and understand, how incredible it is. Now, with that being said, I still haven't read the book, so I apologize.
No
right?
worries,
There's been so much going on. My wife is 8.5 months pregnant.
Oh, congratulations.
Everybody has excuses, and they're like assholes, right? Everybody's got them. So I'm going to read the book. I'm excited. I'm doing this because I want everybody to read the book, and that's me as well. And while we're on it, you also have an incredible app, which I have downloaded and start using. I did things kind of backwards.
Okay,
right?
that's fair.
Because you're supposed to read the book first.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
The way this works is the book gives you all of the information, why you're doing what you're doing, and it shows you how to set up your own program. The app is more of a easy guide to how just to develop a program.
Okay.
So it doesn't really matter if you spend a year trying to figure out the book. You've just wasted a year of not aging. So you might as well do both at the same time.
Okay. I love it. So what I want to chat about right now is RAADFest, before we get too far removed. It's winding down here. It's probably about 4:30, and this, just so everybody knows, we're in the booth. Dr. Sandy has sold out of everything, all the books, all the products. Why? Because she's awesome. What are you going to do next year? Bring
More books.
Products, right? And so apologize if there's any noise in the background, but this has been exhausting for me personally. I haven't gotten much sleep the last few nights, which is really weird for me because I'm big on sleep. We're going to have to talk about that in a little bit.
Yes.
But what I want to hear from you right now, I think what the audience wants to hear is, how was RAADFest? Like, I know this is your second year, but how did it change from last year? And then how do you think that it can get better?
Well, that's two questions. Question one is, how is RAADFest? RAADFest is named a festival because it is. It is like the best pseudo conference that I like to go to because it's fun. The people are like way more. I go to a lot of medical conferences and they are so not fun. And you're looking for every excuse to sort of skip out and go to the pool. And I can tell you in the last 3 days, I have not seen outside because there's been so much to do. The talks are just unbelievable.
Right.
Unbelievable. And I have just been overwhelmed too, so I can guiltily tell you that I've not been to too many other booths. I wish I had. I just have not had the opportunity to do that. But the enthusiasm and the energy are just out of this world.
That's incredible. This is a quick plug for me, but I'm only doing it because I really think it's valuable, and that's the only reason I did it. I did a RAADFest daily roundup video for day 0 when I got here on Wednesday night, and then I did it for day 1, and I told everybody I'd keep doing it, but I hardly even got any sleep, and I wanted to keep interviewing people, so I will do day 2, 3, and 4 when I get to it, everybody. But the reason I did that was, seriously,
so much
this isn't just a sales pitch. It's because there's so much information. It's really for people like you because you're so dedicated to what you're doing, and you need to be doing that, and we appreciate that. But there's so much going on, and so you could watch those videos and kind of feel like you were here a little bit, because I walked around to the other booths and I didn't do extensive interviews like this because they didn't deserve it, in my opinion.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
I do that for the people who deserve it, in my opinion. So hopefully you guys can check that out because that's why I did them. But so the other part of the question was next year, we always want to be improving, right? This is constructive criticism. And what do you think we can improve upon to make it better next year?
Well, me personally, I can always make improvements. I did not bring enough books. I did not expect to be where I was. I was overwhelmed with sort of unexpected conversations and interviews and that sort of thing. I was very, just a little overwhelmed, I think. I think next year will be a little bit easier.
Okay.
I hope to have more time to talk to people. It was my first time on the big stage, and it went extremely well, I hope.
It definitely did. You did incredible. We'll talk about your speech that was just this morning a little bit more. But
Great, thank you.
It was definitely incredible.
Thank you. So I want more time. I want more time to interact with people. I want more time to interact with a lot of the other folks that I don't normally get to interact with. So those are just my personal goals. But in terms of RAADFest as a whole, I think every year it just gets bigger and better and more interesting. And the people show up year after year and they need new stuff because it's repetitive folks, and they learned what they learned last year. They want more information, and this place just keeps answering their requirements.
Awesome. I'm going to share mine real quick. RAADFest is incredible. I did not hear one speaker, and I missed a couple because I was hustling, getting interviews for you all. I was doing it for you all. I did not hear one speaker talk about sleep at all. And I watch a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts. I've been watching them for years. I'm one of your earliest watchers, Joe. And he had Dr. Matthew Walker on in about May of 2018, I believe. And Dr. Matthew Walker is a sleep scientist at UC Berkeley, and he is also now Google's sleep scientist. And I've always been interested in sleep, and I remember watching documentaries a few years ago. The last 4 or 5 years, I've been busy with other things, and I kind of figured, man, I guess we just don't know much about sleep because these documentaries aren't teaching me a whole lot. But Matthew Walker has completely changed my perspective on sleep, and I now believe it is unequivocally the most important thing that we can be doing right now to improve our health, and it doesn't cost anything, and I think that's why nobody's talking about it, because there's nothing to sell. Maybe mattresses, maybe an eye mask, but I just want to get your thoughts. Tim shared with me that you might not be sleeping as much. You're rising to the top fast, but what do you think about sleep?
Well, obviously sleep is extremely important. When you don't sleep enough, obviously you are suboptimal in what you can do.
Okay.
The only thing that I can contribute in terms of sleep, because I don't know too much, but I can tell you that your circadian rhythms are controlled by your sirtuin genes.
Right.
And your sirtuin genes, of course, drop over time. So it's one of the reasons that old people just can't sleep. They're sirtuin deficient and they're nicotinamide deficient. And many people have come to me with that issue, and I have sort of fixed those issues, and now all of a sudden they sleep incredibly well.
That's
so
very nice.
I can't tell you about the pathophysiology, but I can tell you that there's at least one very specific thing that we can fix.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'll just say one final time, I think sleep is so important, and I wish more people would learn about it. I did a book review of Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep. I did it not to put people to sleep, but because I think it's important. So moving on a little bit, my sister is about to get a graduate degree in anesthesiology from the University of Cincinnati in December. So let's talk about that a little bit for you. So you're an anesthesiologist,
I am.
Right? So you talked about this a little bit in your speech, which I thought was incredible, but tell that story about how you ended up standing here right now, if you know what I mean. Because we all have a unique story on how we ended up standing here.
We all have a path. So I guess it all starts in college, right? When you sort of figure out what you're going to do. And everyone going into med school is a big old giant geek. So I decided to become a tropical ecologist because that was way cooler. So for a couple years I spent time sort of roaming around the jungle. I've been on bat catching expeditions. I've been bitten by 1,000 vampire bats and almost bled out. Hold on. Crazy stuff.
You've been bitten by 1,000 vampire bats?
So the boyfriend du jour was an ornithologist who was getting his PhD in why things fly.
Okay.
And we went to Costa Rica to catch bats. And you put nets up, and bats fly into the nets, and then you have to get them out of the nets and measure them and do all of these things that we were doing. And they're not very happy about it.
Yeah.
So they tend to sink their fangs into you, and of course they release a coagulant, an anticoagulant, so you bleed like stink. So yes, I've been attacked by many vampire bats.
And so how did you need to seek medical attention for that?
Nah, you just suck it up.
Okay. There's a gentleman, Vice News has done a YouTube video on this. There's a guy who injects snake venom into himself, and he's been doing it for a while, and it's actually had really good anti-aging properties. When I saw the video about 7 years ago, he was 42 years old, I believe, at the time, and his telomeres were shown to be 28 years old.
Nice.
Now, I don't know what company measured the telomeres. We know a little bit more about telomeres than most people because we are close to people like Dr. Bill Andrews. Life Length, I strongly believe, is the best company to measure your telomeres. They're headquartered in Barcelona, Spain. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but they have the best electron microscope. And they do something that's very important. They measure your critically short telomeres, which is what's important because that's what's going to turn into disease, whereas most companies aren't doing that. I had my telomeres measured in 2013 because of Dr. Bill Andrews. He really consulted me, and he's an incredible person, right?
Oh my God, yes.
He always replies to everything. And I was 28 at the time, and it showed I had a biological age according to my telomeres as 21. I don't think I'm anywhere near that anymore because I haven't lived as healthy the past 6 years. I'm 34. But
it's funny because you only look 54.
I only look 54, right? I'm doing great.
Awesome.
And, not bad.
You need the protocol.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're going to you're probably thinking right now, like, we haven't even talked about the book or like what I do. And that's what probably you guys are thinking. But there's tons of content out here about her talking about that. We're going to get to that. And there's going to be way more because what you're doing is incredible. And but before I finish on that, about a week ago, I was just searching YouTube. I was like, I wonder if there's any updates because this snakebite stuff is too crazy. And they made a couple new episodes on that. And I think now the gentleman is like 52. I think his name is Steve. It's on Vice News. These have like 1 million views or more. And he still looks pretty young in my opinion. So it has anti-aging properties with the snake venom. But do not go and inject yourself with snake venom.
Yeah, I don't think I should recommend that in the next book.
But the reason I'm bringing that up is like this world of anti-aging, right, that we're in, it can take you in loops and twists and turns and where the research is going. Snake venom, like what?
Oh yeah.
So I'm trying to tie this all in. How have you been able to navigate this space so quickly and rise to the top? We want specifics. That's what I want to know.
All right, so specifically, how did I do it? As I said, I was a cell biologist.
Right.
So we don't have to tell people it's actually a plant cell biologist. I spent a lot of time measuring not mitochondrial, but other sort of cell systems in plants, but it's kind of easily translatable.
And at what university was this?
University of Connecticut. Okay. So I have a master's in tropical ecology and evolutionary biology, which doesn't sound very related, but it kind of is. Chloroplasts are very similar to mitochondria. They just work kind of backwards because, anyway, long story. But if you take that and then you combine it with knowledge in the medical field,
right,
and not traditional Western medicine, because Western medicine is you get a disease and then you treat it. I like to think that we need to be more proactive, meaning we take things to reduce relative risk of disease.
And we call that preventative medicine.
Preventative medicine. And people like to say, oh, you're holistic, and I hate that word. I think it's tragic, but it is preventative. At least we're reducing relative risk is what I like to tell people. But what I did learn in med school is pharmacology, physiology, all of the kinetics, pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, all of those things, which led me to the path of being able to comprehend the literature that's out there.
Okay.
So when I started on this path, there were some crazy things going on. And I looked around, I thought this was nuts. But I really was very sort of curious to see if there was anything real that was out there. So what I did is in absolute complete isolation.
I'm sorry, can I pause you there for just a moment?
Sure.
I don't really like to cut you off, but I want to make sure I'm not following one thing, so maybe some other people aren't. How and why did you decide to get in this? Is it just because you feel like you're getting older? Like, where's the why here?
So the why is this. I'm kind of a crazy outdoors person.
Okay.
I mean, not as crazy as such.
You do a lot of rock climbing.
I don't free solo. I don't do crazy stuff like that. But I love being outdoors. I love being healthy. I love rock climbing. I love hiking. I love swimming. I used to be a big runner, not so much anymore. But I love physical activity.
Okay.
And I distinctly remember hanging off a cliff one day thinking, I like where I am. I was 44, 45 at the time. And I thought, this is just going to go downhill. Like literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Because I was on a hill.
And so was that the first time that kind of thought came up in your mind, or did you kind of know this stuff when you were younger?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, that's it.
No.
You're not, that is very common, and I'm different, and like Aubrey de Grey is different. From a very young age, I was like, oh, aging's terrible. But I never did anything about it. I didn't get a biology degree. I got a communications degree in college.
But that's okay, because you can talk about it. You can talk about
it.
I
apologize. I'm done. I just want to let
no.
you know, in case you didn't know, like, that's normal. So it's totally...
Well, I think it is normal for most people, because I think you hit your 30s and you think you're immortal, 35, you're still immortal. Yep. At some point, near 40-ish, you start realizing that you're not as good as you were.
Right.
Your vision starts to go, maybe your hair is not as strong. you just see small physical declines. And you know it's coming when you can't do a 2-finger pull-up anymore. You're like, oh my God, I need 3 or 4 fingers, and that's tragic. It's tragic. And you think, what the hell am I gonna do?
Right.
So being like a geek, everyone who knows me goes, my God, you're the most athletic geek we've ever met, but that's okay, I'm cool with that. I locked myself in my office in the hospital. And the good news is I have access to every paper ever written from anyone, anywhere, because I work at a hospital.
Right.
And my office looks like a library vomited. Honestly, there's paper.
What's the name of the hospital that
So
you
I work at
at?
the Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital in Hollywood, Florida.
Perfect. You're in Hollywood. Are there a lot of celebrities around there in Hollywood?
Yeah, not a one. But it
Okay.
sounded really good. The intention, apparently, when they built this, was that they were going to make it the new Hollywood. It just never really sort of panned out, but it was a
Right.
great idea.
And so you're really close to Bill Falloon then, just geographically, right?
I am.
And so a lot of the other, there's a big anti-aging community in that area.
Yeah, there
So-
is. Yes, there is.
So I apologize. We go off every now and then, but you can
Tangents
please
are good.
continue. Yeah,
Tangents are
back
good.
on.
No, so I mean, I sat there and I thought, with all of the information in my head, I was able to plow through these articles.
Right.
I really did. I read thousands and thousands of base research cellular articles. And some of the theories of aging were like nuts, absolutely crazy. So, you know, I ended up making this huge pile of Post-it notes.
You're a Post-it note
I am
gal,
a
huh?
total Post-it note
Okay.
person,
What
right?
colors? Like different colors, or are they all like the same color up on the wall?
Yellow.
All yellow.
Different color pens, but all yellow.
Okay.
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 Um,
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
And then basically it was, okay, well, this reason is kind of like this reason, but it's phrased differently. Point of view here, 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 here. And it took me like a year and a half to shift all of these things around. And this light bulb went off in my head one day. They all fit really nicely into 7 categories. And then I thought, I am staring at this doom and gloom pile. What can we do about this? But the nice thing is, as you're reading these cellular articles, they have gold standard items that can like cure these things.
Right.
Right, so they would talk about like an astaxanthin or a resveratrol or a this or that, and then I'd say, well, my gosh, I should look that up. And so then it sort of fell into this absolutely crude chart, because I'm not very computer savvy, with me making grids on a piece of paper, and it was the 7 reasons that you age up top, and then I would go, here's an agent, and then I would read a little about it, and I'd put a check in that box. Yep, it did something there.
And at this point in time, did you even know who Dr. Aubrey
No.
Gray is?
No,
'Cause
not
he
a
has
clue.
7 theories of aging too, and they're not
No.
the exact same. But
No,
it's just kind of.
I had no idea. And I did that on
Interesting.
purpose, actually, because I didn't want to take someone else's ideas
Yeah.
and incorporate it into mine. I didn't know anybody.
Right.
I paid literally no attention to real names on papers.
A true self-learner, an autodidact.
No, I mean, I checked like where they were and sort of like if it was peer reviewed, you know, for legitimacy, but I didn't know anyone.
Fantastic.
Not a soul.
It's
This
very
is
fascinating.
all de novo, me reading from scratch.
And so what kind of time period are we talking about here? Because I know that, you know, you're a family person. I know you have, you know, a very important career, you know, and I use the word important because it's not just like you lose business. You know, you're dealing with people's lives and healthcare, right? So how long did this take, and when did you find time to do this?
I have no idea. That's a very good question. It took me about 4.5 years.
Okay.
4.5 years.
So
And it
timeline
was-
here is like 2012, 2016-ish?
Yeah.
2017-ish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it took me, but I didn't start out to say day one I'm going to write a book.
Right.
It had nothing to do with it. This was a absolute crusade to figure out if I could figure it out.
You're a
It
scientist and
became
you're
an
trying to
absolute
figure out
challenge.
the truth,
I did.
right?
That's all I wanted to know. And people are like, who are you and how in the world are you going to figure this out? And someone at Stanford or Harvard or Oxford, why aren't they the people figuring this out? I'm like, well, why the hell? Why not me? Just because I don't work in academia doesn't mean my brain is any less significant than theirs.
And I want to piggyback on that for a moment, because I'm so glad that you have that self-talk, because that's a very healthy self-talk that you have going on. And I wish more people would have that self-talk. If you have that voice in your head telling you can't do something, just audit it. Maybe it's true, but maybe it's not. And we don't do that enough. And I've been doing that more personally over the past couple years. And that's why I'm making YouTube videos, and that's why I'm here.
Great.
I turned down a lot of money at LinkedIn, you know,
Yeah.
and corporate enterprise, and people think I'm crazy. But I think that what I'm doing is really important. I think that what you're doing is really important. I think that what almost everybody at this conference is doing is really important. And right now in 2019, it's kind of a selfless job. You know?
Oh, yes.
And we're doing this because we care about it and we believe it's important.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I've made, other than selling a few books, not a whole lot of money. I can guarantee you it has cost me more to be here than I will ever make.
I think that's true for almost all of us, right?
That's not why we're here.
But we are people and we need to grow. We need to grow financially, right? And so I think that that is going to be changing in the next few years. I don't expect it's going to happen next year or maybe the other year, but the tide seems to be turning to me. This is real science that's progressing. There's some really exciting things. There's BioViva, literally right there. We're not going to move the camera, but Liz Parrish's company, she ties into Bill Andrews. So you formed a relationship with not only Dr. Bill Andrews, Liz Parrish, other folks.
Yeah.
So I'm going to allow you to allow you. That's horrible. Like I'm going to allow you.
Gee, thank you.
Right. I'd love it if you could please, finish up the story if you're not done yet on kind of like, the notes and everything, the post-its. And then after that, would love to talk about some of the people that you've connected with in this community, mainly the scientists and the entrepreneurs.
Sure. So basically the process was me sitting down with this big chart, trying to find things that attacked each category.
Okay.
And it was a long search, and it was many, many nights of, the good news is I get paid to be on call, so I'm at the hospital anyway.
Okay.
And paper's free, and I shouldn't say that because I'm burning down trees, but I can't for the life of me read anything on a computer screen, because can't underline, which is really annoying.
Right.
But anyway, I read, and before what happened was it was checks, like does it work? Yes. Does it work? No. Oh my God, this one really works. Check. Ooh, this one's super fantastic. Check. But I decided that you couldn't do anything with checks, so it became a number system.
Okay.
And I decided that I capped it at 3. Probably a completely esoteric decision, but that's what I did. So it's everything, nothing was a 0. 3 is fantastic. I developed something that I call the hierarchy of evidence.
Okay.
Did an agent work in theory? Did it work in a test tube? Did it work in a culture? Did it work in a small animal model? And lastly, did it work in people? So the more it did and the more evidence it did, it got a higher rating.
You're describing what sounds like to me to be the scientific process.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Right.
So what I ended up happening, and I didn't obviously set out to do any of this, but to keep track in my own mind, every agent that I looked at now in the 7 categories walked away with a 7-digit number applied to it.
Okay.
And I'm like, I need a catchy phrase for this number, so I called it the Kaufmann rating number, because that's me and I did it, and I thought might as well take either responsibility for it or blame for it, or however that turned
we'll
out.
let time be the judge of that.
Oh, yeah, people are going to eat me alive for these numbers. Like, didn't you know? I'm going to be like, no, I didn't. So
we were trying.
So the numbers may change. I'm the only one that's ever rated any of these. Maybe that'll change over time. I'm sure people will send papers to me and go, oh, you screwed up.
I rated that in 1987, you crazy. It's
going to change. But the point is, it's a place to start. And the other thing I realized is because you have different agents with different rating numbers, something will be fantastic on one category but does nothing in another category, and then you got to fill in something that helps in that category. So I came to several scientific jumps. I came to the idea that, well, if you're going to stop aging, you need to do it in all of the categories.
And reverse, right? We want to slow stop
perhaps.
Hopefully.
I'm aiming for a severe deceleration. If we get to reverse, that would be fantastic. I don't know if we're there yet. I don't want to make people think we're selling snake oil here. Definitely we can decelerate it, which is kind of cool. But the idea is that it became a scientifically based, comprehensive anti-aging program.
Right.
Which had nothing to do with absolutely anybody. It was just me. And I wrote this in the solitude of my house with my kids screaming at me. I handed it
How old are your kids today?
Well, now they're 13 and 15.
Okay.
So the good news is they had to do their homework. So I'm like, mom's doing her homework too. And we all sat there, and I think I was a good role model. And then I had this huge printed off copy, and I handed it around to all of my friends in the hospital, and they left me notes and this and that and the other. So it got edited down. And then I made the mistake of handing it to a 30-year-old who added emojis, which I thought were pretty funny. I'm like, who puts emojis in a book? But there are emojis in the book. Some series of really bad jokes. And that's how it sort of was born.
I'll let the reader be the judge if the jokes are bad or not. I got some dad jokes that I can pull out every time here and there that I don't think are too bad. I'll spare you of those for now.
Fair enough.
So that is really fascinating. I knew the high level because I've, done a little bit of my homework here. I'm not standing here just to get an interview. I think that what you're doing is fantastic.
Thank you.
And those are hopefully some more in-depth details that I hadn't heard. So maybe I'm guessing probably other people hadn't heard yet.
Probably not.
That was pretty interesting. Are there any other, before we move on, are there any other details of kind of this intensive process that you did over many years that you think are important that you wanted to share right now?
Well, I think to truly understand sort of what I'm talking about, you have to understand that I'm doing this on a cellular level. Some people, you can think about the body in innumerable levels, and people say, is your book about yoga?
Right.
No. Is it about eating well? No. People want to say, what do you eat? How do you exercise? Blah, blah, blah. And I tell people up front, I'm not a nutritionalist. Eat well, do some exercise, but that's not my gig. The gig is cellular biology.
Okay.
So the premise of this is that your cells age in 7 categories. And people have clumped them, as you say, Aubrey de Grey did it in various
Right.
categories. My categories are basically 7 things, and I will bore them with you very briefly here.
Please do. That's what people came
cool,
here. They're
cool.
finally, you're giving me something. I don't want to care about our
Science.
kids. We want to get to know you, but some people don't. Everybody's
All
all
right, fast
different out
forward to
there.
the sciencey geeky
This
part.
is it.
Here it
This
is.
is the
Here it
sciencey
is.
geeky.
Okay, item 1, DNA alterations.
Okay.
Your DNA gets methylation problems and it gets telomere shortening.
But now we have very good tests compared to the past. They will continue to get better on DNA methylation tests and telomere tests,
Exactly.
as we already talked about.
And
Perfect.
I publicly do not say a word about telomeres because Bill Andrews is the god.
He's actually
standing right over
right
there.
Yeah.
So I refuse to say anything because why should I when there's a genius that can say way more than I can?
Right.
But that being said, very important in category 1.
Read Dr. Bill Andrews' 2 books. There'll be a link below, and I did a book review on his last book. It's phenomenal, and I like how he made him 80 pages. You can
Yeah.
read his book in 2 hours.
Yeah, no, it's true because I did that. All right, category 2 is mitochondria.
Okay.
Mitochondria are the energy packets of your cells. They're very important. They fail for 2 essential reasons. I mean, there are many reasons, but 2 essential. Nicotinamide deficiency. As you've seen, there are many people here sort of trying to come up with the best way to replete that supply. And then free radicals.
Okay. And I have a friend, I'm going to name him, Tom Benson, who is in love with mitochondria. He thinks that mitochondria is the most important thing that we're going to be able to biohack to slow, stop, and reverse our aging. And he's working on some pretty interesting projects with some pretty high-profile startups and venture capital. I'll use the word billionaires. So there's some exciting things going on with bioreactors and mitochondria. I kind of feel like I'm living in a science fiction novel sometimes, but I'm actually really living in real science.
Yeah, no, this
and
is
real
real.
reality.
This is real.
Mitochondria is not our DNA. It's this other DNA creature that made its way into our cells a long, long time ago.
Not completely true, but
This-
sort of. Sort
It's kind of what
Sort of.
Natasha talked about.
Yes.
Natasha
right.
Vita Moore.
Right. So I talk about in my book a love-hate relationship between 2 cells 1 billion years ago.
Right,
Where the
okay.
big cell really wasn't cutting the mustard because it
Yeah.
didn't have any energy.
Right.
And then there was super cool little hip cell that could make its own energy.
Yeah.
Right. So big cell ate little cell. Was love at first sight, and then they just completely took it over.
Yep.
So now big cell has little cell's DNA in it. And it's slightly different because it's circular. Our regular DNA is not circular. It goes through the maternal side of the family. Pros and cons to each. Interestingly enough, I love mitochondrial DNA because there's no telomeres. So it cannot shorten,
Right, 'cause
it
it's
can't age, it's circular.
Right. Well, one thing, some are showing that mitochondria does age, so I just wanted to...
Mitochondria age.
Oh, okay.
Just not the DNA.
Gotcha.
Mitochondrial
Okay.
DNA
Perfect.
do not age. Well, it may take some beating because of free radicals.
Okay.
But as it replicates, there's no telomeres.
Perfect. There are definitely no telomeres in mitochondria. They're circular. So
Right.
Interesting. So that was number 2.
So mitochondria number 2, very important. But again,
Yeah.
big scientists live in silos. So there's DNA people, there's mitochondria people.
Right.
So topic 3 or tenet 3 is aging pathways.
Right.
And I talk about the sirtuins. There's 7 mammalian sirtuins. There's the AMP kinase pathway, and then there's the mTOR pathway.
Right.
Of course, these fail with time. We need to get them activated. Various ways of doing that. And there are pros and cons to activating or deactivating the mTOR pathway. That's sort of a little controversial right now. Just depends on how old you are and such.
Okay.
But that's number 3.
Perfect. Number 4.
Number 4 is quality control. Love quality control. You have 4 DNA repair mechanisms. You have 4 protein repair mechanisms.
Okay.
And you have autophagy, I throw that in there as well, which is cellular recycling, mostly mitochondria, also some other organs. You have 10 to the 5th DNA errors per cell per day. That is a lot.
That's a lot.
As we say in the vernacular, that's a shit ton.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So if you don't have DNA repair mechanisms, your cells are just going to not work very well, and that's actually one of the reasons that you have progeneroid. Same saying that erroneously, so I apologize. But there are diseases that you age very, very quickly because you cannot repair your own DNA.
Okay. And that was number
4.
Yep.
So 5 is your immune system. Your immune system goes haywire over time. We all become systemically inflamed.
Okay.
You can measure that with the CRPs and all that sort of thing.
And do you know, is Bill Falloon's Aging Reverse Network, are they measuring that in the clinical trial that they're doing? Do you know?
I do not know but I would assume so.
So right there, a little bit behind the camera, we have the largest clinical trial going on with Bill Falloon that's just starting in the Age Reversal Network. So I'm going to find out if they are measuring that in the clinical trial.
I would imagine that they would.
I would think so too,
but it seems like a reasonable thing to do.
We're trying to be like objective here, so
100%,
I'm trying to
100%,
share things that I know for sure.
But the other interesting thing is not only do you become inflamed, you can't fight off infection as well, which is why old people tend to get sicker.
Right.
As well, the cells in the immune system, you get more leukemias and lymphomas.
Right.
So increased risk of cancer in that arena.
Okay.
So that's not good.
That is definitely not good. Unless
so
you want to die and like suffer on the way to death.
Because everyone wants that.
I don't. I mean, that's why I'm here. Yeah.
All right, so let's see, where were we? Category 6.
Yep.
I call individual cell requirements.
Okay.
Because a red cell is different than a liver cell.
Right.
Right? Depending on how long they live, where they are, do they travel, are they niche dependent, etc. I put senescent cells in this category, and I put stem cells in this category. Because it just seems to fit.
Okay.
And then the last category, which is one of my favorites, is waste management, because you have to take out the trash.
Yeah, the mafia.
Yeah, baby.
In
fact, there's a mafia joke in the book under waste, because you have to.
Yeah.
Right?
I love it.
And no one's killed me yet, so I think we're okay.
Yeah. I think you're going to be around for a while. I'm hoping. We're
I
all
hope
hoping.
So. If I die, hopefully it'll be some evil, traumatic something rather than just like old age.
Hopefully you just pass like in your. No, we don't even want to talk about that.
No, we won't.
It's
No, I'll be 100 and I'll fall off a cliff. But I'm
rock climbing.
Cool with that. I'm totally cool with that.
So Dr. Sandy is a huge rock climber.
Yes.
Let's go off on a quick path real quick. How'd you get into rock climbing, and how long you've been doing it, and how much time do you devote to rock climbing these days?
Not as much as I would like, unfortunately. I started climbing 17 years ago.
Okay, so.
I was a runner. I did mini triathlons. I swam a lot, blah, 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 blah. I was sort of like looking for something more fun to do. There was a climbing gym near the hospital where I work. I started going, and I'm like, this is fun.
Nice.
Yeah, and so you sort of learn more. You get stronger. You do this, you do that. And then I started meeting a lot of people that climb outside. So then we would all sort of go on these climbing trips.
Did you start climbing by yourself originally, or with a friend or a family member?
So I would just go to the gym on my own.
Okay.
But it's a very friendly community. If anyone wants to ever go to a climbing gym, you can walk in. Everyone will greet you and hug you and kiss you and go, join us. It's fun.
In Hollywood, Florida?
Well, there's 3 gyms in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area.
Okay.
And it's just a fantastic community.
Okay.
And then people just go on trips and travel, and it's amazing. I used to be more diligent. I used to climb 2 to 3 days a week. Now with everything, hopefully I get 1 to 2 days in. Sometimes I miss. Good news is I'm going climbing tomorrow.
That's awesome.
Because we're in Vegas, we're near Red Rock, so that's very cool. Very excited.
I'm going to take the opportunity to say that says something about you, because I am exhausted and I am not exercising tomorrow. I'm going to be trying to rest tomorrow. She's going rock climbing tomorrow. This has been an intense 4 days. For most folks. It's been incredible, but it's been intense. So
waste management,
number 7.
Number 7. So waste management pretty much, for the most part, talks about glucose and AGE products.
Okay.
Advanced glycation end products for people that don't know. A glucose under oxidative stress, and we all have that, sticks to a protein or lipid or DNA, creates this AG thing. Actually, it's an ALE if it sticks to lipids, blah, blah, blah. Great acronym, though, AGE, right? You want to get rid of your AGEs if you don't want to age.
I don't want them.
And they accumulate on tissues. They're the source of inflammation. They're a source of sticking to collagen and destroying structural tissues. They do a variety of pretty terrible things. We even have receptors on our cells called RAGEs, RAGEs. So an AGE will get sort of taken into a cell and then sort of gotten rid of.
Okay.
Anyway, so those are very bad. And then lastly, you accumulate lipofuscin in long-lived cells. And
this is still part of waste management.
This is waste
number
management.
7, though, right?
Waste management. This is it. Last thing is lipofuscin accumulation in long-lived cells. So what happens as for example, a mitochondria gets recycled. The cell is able to take most of those pieces and parts apart, recycle them, and then rebuild another mitochondria.
Right.
There's always a little piece of gunk left over that it can't do anything with. I call it the kitchen drawer phenomenon, right? Which sounds ridiculous, but I'm really good at stupid analogies. So the longer you've lived in your house, the more crap you have in a particular drawer in the kitchen. I'm pretty sure most of us have done this.
I'm like
you're looking
staring off into oblivion right now.
You're kind of looking guilty, right?
Maybe.
So the more you've lived in the house, the less you are to you can't open the drawer, right? Then it's time to move.
Yep.
And you don't really know what's in there. But there's always crap in that drawer. That's lipofuscin in your cell.
Got it.
Okay?
That's a really good analogy.
So the good news is there are maybe 1 or 2 things we can do to reduce that. But if you look at the brain of an older person, it is filled with lipofuscin. Interesting little stupid tidbit. It's how they age lobsters.
Interesting.
There's an absolute definitive linear relationship between age and lipofuscin accumulation in lobsters, because clearly they're not taking any anti-aging supplements.
Right.
So if you want to accurately age your lobster, lipofuscin.
That's very interesting because Dr. Bill Andrews and I talked about in our interview and many other interviews I do, I'm very interested in how other animals age. We talked about lobsters, we talked about whales, we talked about turtles, but my wife and I are scuba divers. I've been certified since I was 13, and my wife and I were diving off the coast of Kauai, we were scuba diving off the coast of Lanai, the island that Larry Ellison owns, that he bought for $500 million in 2012, right off the coast of Maui. And this was 2012, and we were about 30 feet under, and we saw a lobster. I saw a lobster that was bigger than a lobster that I thought could exist. I mean, it was about this big.
Wow.
And so what I've learned and what Dr. Bill Andrews has said is that the lobster's telomeres don't shorten. So they just basically keep growing and growing. And so we think that maybe they only die from it might be the other reasons, but they seem to just keep, their telomeres don't shorten.
Interesting.
So they seem to just keep growing, growing, growing. They might die from predation, getting eaten, or from some type of infection, or from, of course, just not getting food and starving to death. But other than that, they seem to just keep growing. So the bigger the lobster.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we need to become lobsters.
I don't think, I like being a human.
Probably true.
Yeah. But in any event, that is fascinating regarding the. Did you say that was in the brains of lobsters only?
No.
Okay.
No, I think it's in most of the lobster cells.
Okay, but you were just referring to the
accumulation
in humans, older people's brains.
Right. So it accumulates in cells that don't turn over.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
So your most, not all of the neurons in your brain do not turn over. Therefore, they accumulate this stuff for however many years you're living. So it becomes sort of a big problem.
Okay. So those are all the 7 right there.
Would you like to invite Bill Andrews?
Yeah, Bill Andrews. You want to
jump
in real quick?
Jump in.
Here's Dr. Bill Andrews. Yeah. Please say goodbye.
I gotta say my
Oh,
flight.
oh, thank you so much for everything.
You're the
I
best new
appreciate it.
addition to RAADFest ever.
Thank you.
Can you hear, Dr. Andrews? We're actually live. We're not going to edit this. So
Okay.
just say it to her again.
You're the best new addition to RAADFest ever.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank
I
you.
love it. And it was so great to see you again.
Yes.
We'll be in touch. Get home safely.
Well, now you're close by.
Yes, I will be up soon.
Before the snow melts.
I'll be up again to interview you soon before the snow melts for sure. So real quick on that, my wife and I've lived in the San Francisco Bay Area the last 11 years. My wife and her whole family's from there, but we just recently moved to Folsom due to family issues that I'm not going to get in right now to spare you. But because I'm just a little bit east of Sacramento, I'm now closer to Reno,
Bill.
Nevada,
Nice.
with Dr. Bill Andrews.
Nice.
So hopefully I'll be able to get up there and interview him a little bit more and share a lot of content about what he's doing. Because
Fantastic.
I think that one of the biggest things that's happening right now is people are starting to network and connect more.
Oh, yes.
And that's what we need to really keep just hatching away and chipping away at this
Oh
problem.
yeah, and
of
in fact, he and I are working on the gene therapeutic method of anti-aging.
Perfect. So before we jump into that, is there anything else about the 7 ways of how we age that you were discussing that we want to finish up, or do you feel like?
No, that's pretty much that.
Okay.
I mean, I could talk about this until the cows come home,
Right.
and I'm not going to bore everyone. If you really want to be bored, you can read my book.
Right. Read her book. There's going to be other content about that. Let's pivot and let's talk about that right now. What you're doing with Dr. Bill Andrews, the partnerships with anybody else, and because you were up on stage there with them at the end with the panel, and that's really impressive and great to see you up there. So
yeah.
please share.
So what happened, as I told you earlier, I met Bill here, and I hounded him until he would talk to me. He read the book, blah 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 blah. He said, "You want to be involved in any projects?" And I said, "Fantastic." So he's involved in trying to elongate telomeres or stabilize telomeres by putting the gene for telomerase into people. It's a huge new thing. We're working on clinical protocols. They're almost done. So hopefully in a few months we'll actually have done this for the first time in humans.
Right.
But what's very interesting is the question then is, how do you measure if we've reversed aging?
Right.
Right? And there's a lot of labs all over the country, all over the world that has come up with a list of biomarkers. And interestingly enough, he came to me. And I worked with Joe Raphael, and we came up with the world's most inclusive list of biomarkers to be able to say, this is where we're starting, what's going to change.
Okay. And when you say, first of all, that's incredible, and thank you for sharing that, and thank you for contributing. When you say we, is this a company? Is this a side project right now when you're referring to like you and just Dr. Bill Andrews?
So it's being funded or encapsulated by a company called Libella Gene Therapeutics.
Okay, so yeah, got
right.
them.
So it's a combination of Bill, who owns Sarah Sciences, and Libella, and then I was just sort of hired as a consultant. I would have done it for free because it's just so flippin' cool.
Don't say that.
They're not paying me much, so it probably is for free.
Okay.
But anyway, so I got into this to make this huge pile of biomarkers.
Right.
And then we were on all these conference calls, and they said, oh my gosh, we need a clinical physician, preferably an anesthesiologist, who can help us actually do the clinical trial. And I kind of got on the phone, and I didn't really know these people very well. I was a little timid, and I go, this may be a little convenient, but I'm kind of a clinical anesthesiologist. And they're like, oh, that's so cool. So I became one of the lead physicians on this because of my skills in that area. So as the whole project evolved, I've sort of become more and more incorporated into all of this, which is why I sort of know all of these people now.
Okay, super fascinating. Now, because of something you said a few moments ago, I want to talk just real briefly, we don't have to go too in depth, but about BioViva and Liz Parrish, because I interviewed her on July 10th in Seattle, the Seattle area, and from my understanding, all of her biomarkers that she had tested before September 15th, 2015, where she undertook the 2 gene therapies, the telomerase gene therapy and the myostatin inhibitor gene therapy, that she got a small amount from Dr. Bill Andrews at Sierra Sciences that she had to scale up, and it was injected in Bogota, Colombia. My understanding is that her biomarkers that have been tested have shown dramatic age reversal. So what are your thoughts on that, knowledge of that, and what do you think about that in general?
2 things.
Okay.
Number one, I don't actually have any real information about it.
Oh.
To be perfectly honest, I met Liz Parrish 2 days ago.
Very fascinating. So, okay, we do need to talk about this a little bit then, because that makes sense from what you said earlier. So she has shown dramatic age reversal.
Right, so I've heard these things,
Right.
but I'm one of these people that unless I have numbers in front of me and
Okay.
I've read the papers and I have primary understanding,
Right.
I don't want to make any public statements. I've heard fantastic things. I've talked to Bill about it. I really, she's fantastic. I've known of her, but I literally met her 2 days ago, and we actually haven't had any real sort of scientific exchanges yet. So
Interesting. Okay.
I hope to in the future. I'll put that on my
This
to-do
is
list.
actually why we're doing these interviews, why I'm doing these interviews, and this is very interesting because I just assumed, and this is shame on me, I just assumed that you did know this stuff, and this is not. This is nothing negative on you. There's so much information out there, right?
Well, the problem
it's
is
crazy.
too, and I don't want to whine about my position in life because
Right.
I love my position in life.
Right.
But as a clinical anesthesiologist, I don't have a lot of time to do all of this.
That's
So-
why I was asked you earlier, where do you find the time?
I know,
right?
it's absolutely crazy. And so I sort of, I try to sort of pay attention to all of these things and
Right.
meet all of these people. But I'm actually working on 2 books right now, and I make my own skincare line, and I do innumerable other things. So trying to keep track of Liz's genes, I sort of slipped.
All right. Well, first
Sorry,
of all,
Liz.
that's very exciting that you're working on
Nice to
2
meet
other
you.
books and the skincare line. I do want to talk about that, but she's, you said you want the documents. Let's see if Liz can, because I haven't actually seen her telomere test, so I've shared my telomere test. I'll put a link in the description below of that, right? Because I want to share. I want
Sure.
people to have this data and this information to kind of prove that I'm not fabricating things. So Liz's telomeres were tested by SpectraCell and also tested by LifeLink before she had it on September 15th, 2015, those 2 gene therapies. And they showed, I believe, a biological age of about 60 years old. And then she was tested again in early January 2016, and it showed a biological age of about 45, which is about the age she was at the time, 45 years old, chronologically. And then she was tested, I believe, earlier this year, 2019, and it showed a biological age on both of these telomere tests, SpectraCell and LifeLink, of about 30. So this is dramatic
That's
age
fantastic.
reversal, right?
Fantastic,
and so
yeah.
That's why when you said what you said earlier, I was like, I am getting excited because these things are happening, because I've known about the gene therapy stuff for a long time and the telomerase, but she's done it now 4 years ago, and everybody was telling her not when she did this, everybody was saying, you shouldn't have done this, you're irresponsible. Lots of scientists were saying it was a big thing on the internet. And now she's done it. She's walking around. She's healthy. She looks great for a 48-year-old.
Oh, please, I'm 50.
You look great too. I didn't say anything about
I'm just
you.
kidding.
Look great
I'm just
also.
kidding. Just kidding.
But show other markers too. So we'll have Liz talk about that more. But it's not just the telomeres. Every biomarker that they tested of her beforehand has shown dramatic age reversal.
That is
So
fantastic.
It's happening.
No,
That's
it's really
my
no.
point,
We're
right?
here. We're here.
But here's the downside. It's a gene therapy. We don't know what could happen to her in next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. She's patient 0. This is uncharted science. It's had really good in the animal models for the gene therapy of telomerase gene therapy. They've extended their health span and lifespan. And the other aspect of this too is that it's incredibly expensive what she did.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it was over $1 million, and they've brought the cost down. But I think, don't quote me, but it's still like $300,000 or $400,000 to do.
It's going to be more than that.
And so that's why I think a lot of people aren't still talking about this, and I want people to know this exists, but this is not what most people are going to be able to do. Most people should be reading your book,
Yes.
doing this type of things, and then hopefully BioViva will be building out this gene therapy technologies, and we'll bring in more venture capital, scale this out, and then in a few years we
Right,
can
then it's
maybe
more
get
readily
gene
available.
therapies. So I'm sorry to go off on a tangent on that.
No, it's
but-
totally cool.
So due to the interest of time, Dr. Sandy is going to do some other interviews, which you guys should definitely check out. I'm going to have those linked in below, because this is not a competition with YouTube. I want you guys to watch these interviews that she's doing with some other incredible YouTube interviewers, because they're going to ask different types of questions that I am, and they're going to get different types of answers out of her. So thank you so much for watching. I'm going to give you a quick opportunity to share any final thoughts, but I do want you to get over to them and do those
I
interviews
appreciate
as
it.
well.
I just want to thank you for doing this. I think it's amazing. I am, as I said, an absolute geek. I am terrible at communication. I will never have
You're an amazing communicator.
Okay, so I can stand up on stage reasonably well. I am really terrible at social media. I think I just found one. I am really terrible at making YouTube videos. I don't even know how YouTube videos work, so I appreciate
That's
things
why
like
I'm
you.
here.
That being said, I love questions from people. Read the book so I can help folks. I answer all emails. My email address is on my website.
It's going to be in the description below as well too on YouTube, and it's on our website, which will also be in the description below. Every single piece of information about this woman that you want in there is going to be in the description below. So
But I want people to know this is real science. It's not snake oil. I am here to educate people and help people figure out how to make the most out of our lives. And that's it.
You're going to get in the last word. I have to say one more thing.
Yes, sir.
Then you're going to get in the last word. You said you're not an effective communicator. That might have been a slip or something. You are an extraordinary communicator, and I have a corporate communications degree from college, so now this is where I can stand up and say,
Okay, good.
you are, and you, not just from communication, you have a very amazing personality. And I believe that your personality creates your personal reality. And you were creating an incredible personal reality for yourself.
Well,
and
thank
so
you.
I thank you so much for what you're doing. And you get to get in the last word on this interview.
Oh gosh, I think I'm out of words. See, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible communicator. Now, I love speaking with people. I guess the point of that was I'm really bad with social media.
Oh.
So ignore my Instagram stuff because it's not all that exciting.
We're going to have her link on Instagram there, and I disagree. I think it's awesome. I'm following you. And
Ooh,
everybody
thanks.
else, follow her. Follow her on social media. All the links will be in below. She's going to do some other incredible interviews for you coming up, and you get the last word.
Bye.
One mind, one love, one heart, one soul. One life, one chance, one head.
Let's touch the sky and let's dance for a while. Heaven can wait, we're only watching the skies. Hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. Are you gonna drop the bomb or not? Let us die young or let us live forever. We don't have the power, but we never say never. Sitting in a sand pit, life is a short trip. The music's for the sad men. Can you imagine when the race is run? Turn our golden faces into the sun. Praising our leaders, we're getting in tune. The music's played by the madman. To be forever young. Do you really want to live forever?
One life,
forever
one love,
and ever.
one soul.
Some say